Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are in the world today. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little bit more about chatbots. We're going to be talking about how AI chatbots can turbocharge recruiting and transform the candidate experience. My name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense. Been running the company for a little over 6.5 years. And before Sense, I ran two professional services companies. So I've been in the human capital industry all my career. Well, first of all, let's talk about what's happening in the market today, what's happening in the industry today. There is absolutely a huge paradigm shift going on in recruiting today. First and foremost, it's a candidates market. I think hopefully all of you will agree with that. Candidates are the one commodity today that are in short supply. Everybody has open jobs, but they can't find candidates. We actually talk to customers where they sometimes have 5,000 open jobs, and they still have a huge famine of candidates that are applying to them. So, it's a candidate market, but the candidate demands today are very reasonable. I mean, they're just expecting an easy to engage experience. They're expecting some personalization. They're expecting you to remember their preferences. And experience has a quantifiable value today. People expect from your website a same consumer-like behavior that they expect when they go to Amazon.com. If I ask you to call me, call me. If I ask you to text me, text me. If I ask you to reach out to me after hours, then please do that. If I ask you to reach out to me during work hours, then please do that. You just have to remember all of their preferences, but obviously you have to do this at scale across thousands, if not millions of candidates. And lastly, automation is now table stakes. It's no longer an option. You no longer can do every single thing that we need to do in recruiting today manually. You absolutely need to have automation. Now, if you think about it, these all seem like big problems. These all seem like, hey, the last thing we want to do is bring on another solution to do automation, another solution that involves some AI, that involves something that we don't have today in our tech stack. So let's try and break it down. First of all, let's start with a quick stat. I'll let you guys, take 5 seconds to think about this in your mind. What's the percentage of candidates who apply to your website over 2 months ago? So not yesterday, not day before, but over 2 months ago, but they've never heard back from you. Well, that number is a shockingly high number of 61%. 61% of people never hear back from you. Now, what some of the successful companies are doing today, they're actually engaging with their candidates using one core principle, and that is meet them where they are. Have an omni-channel approach that's going to involve emails, text messages, chatbots, sometimes even voice. Everything has their own part to play, but you just have to be willing to explore all of these avenues and do what's the best for your candidate. Today, I'm going to spend the majority of this conversation talking to you about AI-based chatbots, that understand natural language, that are powered by machine learning, and how they are powering the candidate experience. So first and foremost, what is a chatbot? Well, a chatbot is simply an AI-based program that is capable of simulating a human conversation, whether it's text-based or voice-based, but that's the basic definition of a chatbot. It can actually simulate a human being, which essentially means it can be available 24/7. It can be available to millions of people all at the same time. Now, clearly, I think a lot of you are familiar with chatbots. There are different kinds of them, and you've obviously seen them in your life. There are shopping chatbots. There are the chatbots that are just basically FAQs. What's the weather? Where can I find this? Siri, if a lot of you talk to Siri in your iPhones, that's a chatbot. So there are lots of different chatbots that exist today. But, because there are so many different chatbot varieties, let's talk specifically about how chatbots can help with recruiting processes. There are several use cases where you can use chatbots across recruiting processes. And there are some myths that I'm here to dispel, because there are some myths about a chatbot being something that only exists on a website, that actually gives you a terrible experience because it only gives you canned responses. It makes the entire experience a little bit more impersonal, so on and so forth. That's not what chatbots of today are doing. Chatbots of today have a brand new paradigm where they are driving conversational recruiting. It's saving your recruiters countless hours, and it is taking away all the manual tasks that essentially is just a drag on their productivity. We'll go through some statistics later on, but I'm talking about chatbots that can actually help you advance in the recruiting process and not make you feel like you got thrown into a black box like the 61% of those people were. So let's start talking about some specific chatbots and where they help. Well, first of all, there is the website chatbot, the chatbot that engages candidates on your website. A candidate visits your website, immediately gets intercepted by a chatbot, and the chatbot starts talking to them. Hey, what can I help you with? I'm looking for a job. Great. What kind of job do you want? Well, this particular kind. Great. Are you willing to answer a few questions? What's your name, your email, your cell phone? What kind of salary are you looking for? How many years of experience do you have? Do you want to upload a resume? You're essentially connecting candidates with the right role. And now, of course, with machine learning, right when you're talking to these candidates, you can actually throw jobs at them immediately and say, based on some of your responses, we actually have a few positions, that might be a good fit for you. See if you like any of these positions, or if you like to apply to any of them. Many of our other customers, we're seeing use cases where they're actually having where they actually have the entire application process be run via a chatbot. So the 15 questions or the 12 questions that you have to ask somebody for them to fill out an application form could just be a conversational back and forth with your chatbot. So that's the first kind, the one that lives on your website. Please know that it is very contextual. If instead of a candidate, maybe a customer was visiting your website, they will go to a different landing page and the website would behave completely differently. Then there is the chatbot that works through text, works through your mobile phone. These are text-based chatbots that you've probably seen before. If you've ever made a restaurant reservation and a message shows up that says, hey, press 0 to confirm or 1 to cancel, so on and so forth. But these can do a lot more when it comes to recruiting. In recruiting, the chatbot can actually ask you questions asynchronously, one by one. What's your name? How much money are you looking to make? Which zip code would you like to work in? So on and so forth. We've seen a tremendous use of this chatbot, for example, in the healthcare industry. Oftentimes in the healthcare industry, your clinicians, your nurses, they're only getting breaks at odd hours. They might be getting a break at midnight, at 7 p.m. when they can't really talk to a recruiter, but they can talk to a chatbot. They can essentially have a conversation with the bot, answer a few questions, and at the end of it, figure out what's a good time for them to connect with a recruiter. So this absolutely decreases candidate drop-off. Candidates love the fact that they're able to get very quick, very early answers to some of their basic questions before they will engage in a full-on recruiting process with your company. In fact, what's very interesting to note is across the millions of conversations that we see our chatbots having with candidates every single month, they rate the chatbot experience around 4.8 to 4.9 on a scale of 5. So it's a highly useful experience for the end user. All right, then there is the screening chatbot. This probably is one of my favorites because this absolutely takes away busy work from your recruiters. If you are in a high volume recruiting situation, you need to hire baristas, or you need to hire manufacturing workers, or you need to hire people that work on a shop floor, or if you need to hire truckers or drivers, any of those high volume hiring situations, your recruiters are asking the same exact question over and over again when they're screening candidates. Imagine having to screen 500 candidates and asking everybody the same thing. What kind of degree do you have? Are you authorized to work in the US? Would you subject yourself to a drug screening? Will you subject yourself to a COVID screening? Do you have a certain license to drive a forklift? If you think about it, all of these are repetitive questions that can be very quickly answered by the chatbot. So you can pre-screen all of your candidates, and this can be done in a customized fashion on a job-by-job basis. You can ask completely different set of questions in healthcare to manufacturing, and then a completely different set of questions if you're hiring knowledge workers. So that's a chatbot that will help you screen candidates. Then, of course, we'll have scheduling chatbots. These are chatbots that absolutely take this whole idea of going back and forth away from you. Here is an interesting statistic for all of you to know. We today spend 7.3 emails on average to set up a meeting. Just to set up a time for two people to converse, the statistic is that you will spend 7.3 emails. If you think about a chatbot, a scheduling chatbot, it completely automates that. So after you've gone through the screening questions, like I just talked about, maybe the chatbot has determined, which in turn means you have determined that this is the right kind of candidate for you. If you determine that, essentially you can throw the scheduling chatbot at this person and say, hey, we love your profile, we love to talk to you more, click here and pick up a time that works best for you. You're putting the power back in the hand of the candidates. Now the candidates can decide what time works for them, and your recruiters simply wake up to a calendar full of pre-screened candidates scheduled at a time that works for them when they don't have any other conflicts. So this is absolutely amazing when it comes to recruiter productivity. It eliminates no-shows. It eliminates the idea of you having to reschedule meetings, so on and so forth. What these chatbots can also do, for example, are several more complex use cases. If you have hundreds of people applying, you can set these chatbots up to say, send the first person who gets pre-screened over to recruiter number 1 and send the second person to recruiter number 2, and so on and so forth. So it'll automatically maintain a round robin, or it can automatically maintain something like send the candidate to the first available recruiter so they can be vetted and screened quickly. We absolutely see these being used in high volume hiring scenarios where sometimes our customers will find out on a Thursday or a Friday that they need to add capacity and need to add 30, 50, 100 people by Monday, so right over the weekend. All right, then this is the reactivation workflow. This is very, very popular with pretty much all of our customers. You probably all have a talent pool today. You probably are all sitting on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of candidates. You obviously spent the last 10, 15, 20 years of your company collecting this talent pool. You've either spent money with job boards, or these people have applied to you, or several of them are your alumni. But essentially, you have a talent pool that you own. This is a talent pool that belongs to you. But obviously, every single day, this talent pool is becoming stale. Every single day, this talent pool is becoming less and less reliable, because now it's been 3 months, now 4, now 5, now 7, before you've talked to these people again. This is where a reactivation chatbot comes into play. You can automatically send this chatbot out based on any trigger. Hey, if in my applicant tracking system or in my HRIS system, we haven't talked to a candidate in 6 months, imagine them being a passive candidate automatically, reach out to them to update their information, which could be whatever you're after. Hey, did your email change? Did your cell phone change? Do you have an updated resume? Did your life situation change? Are you looking to come back to our company? Are you looking for another job? Would you be looking for another job here in the future? So essentially, it breathes life into your talent database to make sure that your talent pool is always kept updated. So that's your reactivation talent chatbot. Then, of course, the super popular chatbot around FAQs. I mean, this is probably the #1 thing that you see today as a use case for chatbots, just providing candidates, maybe even your own internal employees, a way to get answers to simple questions really, really quickly. Hey, what's your PTO policy? Where can I find benefits? Where can I find bereavement policy? Where do I go to get a security badge? Just questions that probably come to your recruiting team or your HR team all the time, but can be super easily answered. So you can build in an FAQ bot that can go as deep as you like. It can cover questions around HR, around engagement, around benefits, around compensation, whatever you're comfortable with. It essentially becomes your virtual assistant where it's able to answer all of those questions quickly. So if you think about it, we've now gone through 7 or 8 different kinds of chatbots. They all work harmoniously together, and they absolutely understand natural language. And then they start becoming smarter every single day because they have more and more training data. When I say natural language, if you ever ask a question that says, hey, would you be willing to subject yourself to a COVID screening? They'll understand everything from sure, yes, yay, to even an emoji that does a thumbs up. But essentially, they have all the contextual information to have a human-like conversation. So let me talk about some stats that I mentioned in the beginning on how they're helping some actual live customers. Here is a firm that's one of America's top fastest growing private company. They use a website chatbot. These are their results from just the past 3 months. In the last 3 months, they've engaged with 35,000 candidates. They've calculated that they've saved over 6,300 hours, which is over 3 man years just in 1 quarter. And they've gotten a 94% satisfaction rate of interaction with the chatbot. This is the part I was talking about earlier, that when you interact with a chatbot, it probably behooves you to make the last question in that interaction be, hey, how satisfied were you with this interaction? And 94% of the people are rating this 5 on 5. So this is how effective chatbots can be when used on the website. This is a screening and scheduling chatbot, probably one of my favorites. This is a publicly traded firm, multi-billion dollars in revenue, global workforce. And you can see their results. They are now engaging 263% of the candidates without adding a single additional recruiter. So the same number of recruiters are now able to talk to 2.5 times more the number of candidates. So those 61% of the people that we've been ignoring no longer need to be ignored. Using the scheduling chatbot that I talked about, they've scheduled over 25,000 meetings. Remember the 7.3 emails that it takes you to schedule a meeting? That's however many emails that have disappeared. And their time to hire based on positions, because some are knowledge workers versus some positions where you need a volume of people and can be hired quickly, they've decreased their time to fill from 30 to 81%. And lastly, this is the reactivation chatbot. This is being used by a firm that has several different franchises all over the US. They're an early adopter of technology. They've redeployed over 20,000 people. So 20,000 people that were their alumni who have worked with them, either last week or 5 years ago, but at some point they've worked with them, they left their organization, they were able to nurture all of these people, bring them back into their company and redeploy these 20,000 people. And based on every single recruiting franchise, they're now making an additional $200,000 in gross margin, which is absolutely dropping right down to the bottom line, thus seeing a 37 times ROI in what they're spending on the chatbots. So anyway, I wanted to talk about these 3 different examples because obviously everybody has their own use cases. For some people, screening and scheduling is more important. For others, a white glove experience when a candidate comes to your website, and a chatbot can engage with them is more important. And for other people, the most important thing is just maintaining a healthy talent pool. So here are 3 different examples of how the ROI of a chatbot can be far greater than what we typically imagine. So if you put all of these together, you essentially start thinking about chatbots powering your entire 360-degree candidate job search cycle. So let's start from the top left-hand corner. For candidates who are passively looking for jobs, they haven't really applied to you, you can use the reactivation chatbot to find out, hey, when would you be looking for a new job? Would you like to come back to our company? What's your life situation like? And in the meantime, can we get updated contact information from you? You can use a website chatbot. Those people are also probably passively looking. They just happen to peruse through your website, but you can have a better capture mechanism. And as long as you can get their name and email, even if they do not go through the entire chatbot, you are now able to add them to a nurture campaign, reach out to them. And if nothing else, maybe ask them for referrals. You can still make them part of your community, give them a way to earn a little bit of money from your company while they may not even be working with you. Then, of course, there are people who are actively applying. These are folks who will use some of these chatbots like text to apply. You can text to a single number, a word like jobs or careers or positions or opportunities. You can absolutely enable that with the chatbot. And if you do that, you simply text jobs to a number. The next question comes back, and boom, just like that, you are now in a conversation over a text message. Like I mentioned earlier, these conversations are asynchronous. So you could, the first question could be, what's your name? Well, my name is John. Great. What's your email address? You could take 4 hours to reply to this because you just got distracted, you went someplace else, and maybe you come back to this and say, this is my email, and instantly you'll get the third question. So it is asynchronous, but it is keeping that conversation going. We also see a tremendous impact of QR code chatbots. If you ever go to a hiring event, or if you ever do campus recruiting or college recruiting, you can certainly just send people a QR code. Or if you have a booth, or if you just have a little table set up, you can have a little placard or a little picture of a QR code, and they can just scan a QR code and answer a bunch of questions without having to talk to anybody, and immediately tell you whether they're a good fit for you, whether they should be talking to a recruiter right there at the event, or whether you need more information from them. And then, of course, if you're actively applying, you can use a screening chatbot. This is, hey, you applied to me, let me ask you a few questions before you engage with a recruiter. Now, you've applied, you've gotten submitted to a job. Now you're in the interviewing process. That's where scheduling chatbots and FAQ chatbots come into play. Now you're curious about, hey, what are your benefits? What are your PTO policies like? You can use the FAQ chatbot for that. But at the same time, the recruiter might trigger and ask for your availability using a scheduling chatbot. They might send you a link, and they might simply say, click here to pick a time. And you click there, you pick a time that works for you, but matches with the recruiter's calendar. And then lastly, you can use these in onboarding. You can use them continually for upskilling. You can enrich your database. You can ask people about what kind of training courses they're looking for. You can ask people around, hey, have you completed this step in your onboarding process? What can we help you with? You can just continue to give everybody a white glove service. But essentially, where we see the future headed is how you would use these chatbots in the entire 360-degree process when it comes to recruiting. So, just for 30 seconds, I'll talk to you about what we are doing at Sense. We're building an entire talent engagement platform. As you can see, the AI-based chatbots is just one small portion of that. This is what I've talked about today. Every single thing that I talked about today exists within our chatbot. But we also have an automated platform that uses AI to track referrals. We also support one-on-one, one-to-many text messaging that gives superpowers to your recruiters as they're texting with hundreds of candidates, but those messages are all going out personalized, and each one of those interactions are being stored in your system of record. And then the Engage platform essentially lets you do cadence-based things in an automated fashion. Somebody's joining your organization in 3 weeks. This is the message they need to get 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before, a week before, a day before. This needs to be an email. This needs to be a text. This needs to be a survey. These need to go out automatically. You set them up one time, and then you forget about them forever, because they will run automatically when a certain condition is met. Somebody's starting, somebody's ending, somebody's interviewing, somebody gave you a referral, somebody's approaching their anniversary, so on and so forth. So at Sense, we've built the first talent engagement platform of its kind that brings all of these different pieces together, even though we talked a lot more about the chatbot today. All right, so hopefully that helped you understand a little bit more about where recruiting chatbots are headed and how they're completely changing the industry and the tremendous productivity and ROI that they bring along with it. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have, about the chatbots or about engagement in general. But thank you so much for being here, and I'll open it up to questions.